Flag pin, shiny as a TV grin, talking tough from a leather chair, sending kids where they'll never sit. Golden tie, talking like it's do or die. Papers power while the cameras spin. Every word is a practice line. Walks, gotta walk. Big talk, big stage, small cause beat the drum, sell the shock. Warhawks, gotta walk. Podcast rage, sells fear like a backstage pass. New suit, same old script. Every map is a looking glass. Front row, cheering from the studio glow. Draw the lines with a marker pen. Other people pay the debt again. Warhawks, gotta walk. Big talk, big stage, small cars, beat the drum, sell the suck. Warhawks, gotta walk. Name the names, then dodge the blame. Call it fate, call it keep us safe. They count votes, we count ghosts. Who counts the folded flags on kitchen table? Warhawks, gotta walk. Gotta walk. Warhawks, gotta walk. Gotta walk. Gotta walk. Gotta walk.
Good evening and welcome to an impromptu podcast on what's happening in the world. And you know, it's not looking great. Well, I don't think it's looking great. I think there's going to be trouble when we look at the amount of ordnance in the form of planes, trains, in the form of planes and ships that Mr. Trump is sending over to the Middle East. Then I can't see this. I really can't see this just being a ploy to try and make the Iranians make a deal that doesn't exist. I mean, they're asking for ridiculous things. So let's start with where we are right now. So, and as Vaughn quite rightly says, another carrier group arrives at the weekend. Well, if we look at where the US government vessel, which is the carrier Gerald R. Ford, which is the flagship of the American fleet. It's the latest, greatest, all singing, all dancing carrier with, importantly, the F-35C and squadrons of F-18s, as well as anti-radar jamming planes like Growlers, and they've got the E-2 Hawkeyes as well. So, I mean, the Ford's got everything, and the Ford can defend itself to a degree because it has directed energy weapons in the form of lasers. And because it's two massive, overpowered nuclear reactors can supply the electricity required to run those lasers. Something that can't be done with Abraham Lincoln, which is already in the Arabian Sea / Indian Ocean. I think it's standing off about 1,000 kilometers or something. Because it doesn't have the power to run directed energy weapons, so it's basically still providing basically a floating airport protected by destroyers. And those destroyers all have missile pods, and those missile pods have a limited use. You know, once the missile's fired, it's fired. You've got to go back to dock to reload them. So I think they've got something like 48. And if, say, even if half are Tomahawks for attack, so Tomahawk cruise missiles, the rest will be for defence. But every time they go to defend against an incoming missile attack, the destroyers are firing 2 missiles for every one to make sure you hit them, much like the Patriot does. And that's failing as well these days. But you're going to run out of missiles pretty quickly if you're defending an aircraft carrier, even if you've got 4 or 5 destroyers, if Iran throws a lot of ordnance at it. And the problem is, I think Iran's got a lot of ordnance. So I'm kind of standing by my point that this year an American aircraft carrier may well be sunk. It's not something I look forward to. And I don't think it was something that would necessarily I think the Americans would be really shocked. But I think more importantly than that, if that happened, their presence on the world stage would be denigrated, wouldn't it? Because suddenly you'd have all sorts of people going, maybe they're not as powerful as they think they are, you know? And maybe not kowtowing to American foreign policy anymore. And that could make a substantial difference in the world. And if we look back at Neil Strauss's book, you know, that, excuse me a second, I just want to turn my fire off. Yeah, if we look back at Strauss and Howe's book, The Fourth Turning, this could well be the middle of the fourth turning that we're in just now, in which case catastrophic social upset or societal upset is going to cause us to move into the next part. Because we've got here through the actions of weak men. And there's no doubt about it, because Donald Trump is not a strong man. He purports to be a strong man, but he's not a strong man because, like everyone in America that appears to be in any position of power, their chain gets yanked by Netanyahu. And I don't think Donald wants to be in the position that he's in, where he's setting up to strike Iran. And let's face it, with this kind of firepower that he's moved in, including sending F-15 Strike Eagles into the desert, including sending F-16 squadrons, F-22s are being sent over. So, you know, you're not sending them over as an idle threat. They're going to use them. They are going to use them. And I think Netanyahu is bitten off more than he can chew here as well. And we'll go into that. We're going to have 2 carrier groups in the Gulf by, Monday, Tuesday? I think, and this is just me, but I think you won't see any action until after he's delivered the State of the Union address on Tuesday. Because I can't see him starting something just before he delivers that address. I may be wrong, but while I said Donald isn't a terribly strong man, he's quite astute. And he's quite politically aware. I think there's a good chance that he'll hold off until after he's delivered that address. And then we would be open for something, maybe even Tuesday night, you know, Wednesday morning, if he wants to make the strike early. But I think the problem is Israel is underestimating the Iranians because they're not backing down. And I think they're not backing down with good reason this time, because the last time they made a deal, and, you know, no matter how you look at it, they made a deal. We'll hit a couple of your nuclear sites and you can destroy a couple of our Patriot batteries. And, you know, that's what happened. You know, and even then, the damage that was caused to Israel was, I think, a lot more than Israel expected, because I think a lot of the missiles got through the Patriot or broke the Iron Dome. Therefore, I don't understand why he's so keen to eradicate, or for the US to bomb Iran, because Iran's a very, very big country. I mean, it's a very big country. So let's have a look how big Iran is, you know. Let's see if we can call it up. Iran map. What have we got? Let's have a look at Iran. Yeah, here we are. So, yeah. There's Iran, and it's from all the way down at the head of the Persian Gulf, Persian Gulf, Arabian Sea, all the way up to nearly to Baghdad. You know, it's nearly part of Iraq there, isn't it? And all the way up to Armenia and Azerbaijan, and not that far from Israel. Israel's just over here, down here. So he wants to eradicate Iran, and I'm not quite sure why. I'm not quite sure why he wants to eradicate Iran, because Iran isn't really posing a threat to anyone at the moment. And I've done a bit more research than I should have probably have done earlier on, before I started yakking my gums about it. And Iran is a Shiite state. It's not Shiite, it's Shiite. There's a subtle difference. But Iran is a Shiite state, so they have a slightly different form of Islam compared to the Sunni states like Saudi Arabia and Iraq. Is Iraq Sunni now? Yeah. And Turkey, which are Sunni states. And the Shiites have this fatwa, if you will, a declaration that they will not possess weapons of mass destruction. And everybody who has been to Iran as an impartial observer, members of the International Atomic Energy Commission, are saying Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon and isn't working towards one, because you need to enrich uranium to use it for medical purposes. So there's reasons for having that. But and any civilized society will have medical uranium, but it doesn't have this, you know, this need to have, or it doesn't feel this need to have a nuclear weapon, and religiously it doesn't want to have a nuclear weapon. Now, that might change if things happen here, but they have said, they've quite bluntly said, if they are attacked by either the US or Israel, then it's a regional war as far as they're concerned, and they're just going to go for it. And I don't think they're bluffing, because this time they've got the backing of Russia and China. And we'll talk about what happened in June last year when Trump did strike them with that, you know, quid pro quo, you know, you'll do this, you do this, and then we'll just call it quits. And they kind of did. But it was Israel that asked them to stop, not Iran, which is interesting, because Israel were the ones getting the pounding. Now, at that point, when that attack happened by the US and Israel, Iran had been offered help by Russia and China and hadn't taken it. So they said, no, we're fine, we can do it ourselves. And it turns out they couldn't. You know, they couldn't quite do what they wanted to do themselves. So this time, they have taken Chinese and Russian assistance, and it's coming mainly in the form of intelligence and intelligence gathering, because you've seen that big radar-domed Chinese ship in the Indian Ocean, and that's feeding data straight into Iran. And similar thing happened in the Indian-Pakistani war, where China was feeding the I think it's a Baidu system or whatever. They were feeding data straight into Pakistani warplanes, who were able to fire weapons, you know, beyond visual range and take out nearly all of India's French Rafales. So it was a big shock to India, because they didn't think Pakistan was so sophisticated, and technically they weren't. But China is. So I think Iran now has access to that system as well, and I think you could see differences when it comes to targeting. So I think the Americans have got to be very careful here, because the Americans got a lot of equipment, a lot of troops in that area. And as Vaughan says, Shalini says Starmer's blocked the US using UK bases to launch ops. Well, he has, or he said he has, but how much pressure's America going to put on the UK for this? Because Diego Garcia is meant to be a shared base. So does Starmer have the absolute say? And you know what? The way Donald Trump is, I wouldn't put it past him to say, fuck you. I'll just take over Diego Garcia, because what's he got to lose? The only people that are ever going to lose in that situation is us. You know, America's not going to lose if we stop trading with them, but we're going to suffer like shit if they stop trading with us. So the question is, how far is Starmer going to push it? I don't know. And Starmer's got the reprieve just now. He's feeling like the big boy because Randy Andy's, taking the heat off him, isn't it? I don't know if you saw the trailer for this live show, but that was my latest video. It's all a bit queer, isn't it, Keir? But yeah, so I think, and this is just my opinion, I think we won't see any action in the air until after the State of the Union address on Tuesday. Now, will it happen at all? Well, the way things are talking, no. There's no point that it will not happen, because everybody's saying there's a red line, and one of Israel's red line is Iran can't have any ballistic missiles. You think Iran's going to give up its missiles? Iran's got to cut all its ties with any terrorist organisations like Hezbollah, Hamas, whatever. You think they're going to do that? No. And, we hear a lot about Iran being the number one terrorist state and, the big bad. And they've built it up. And really, when you look at it, most of the terrorism, and most of the world's terrorism comes from Islam. And that has to be said because it's a verifiable fact, 70%. But most of that terrorism is from Sunni factions, like ISIS, who, strangely enough, were a product of the CIA. It's just, you can't make this shit up. So, on the one hand, you've got, Team America World Police blaming Iran for terrorism, when most of the terrorism that occurs in the world comes from Sunni groups that have usually been funded, in fact, even invented, founded by the CIA, which, as far as I'm aware, is still an American-run organisation, or should I say, an organisation that runs America, because I'm not sure Trump's running this anymore. He keeps making the noises about not wanting to do anything, but you have so much military power in there now that it's going to be embarrassing if they just turn around and sail away, isn't it? Or am I not reading the situation correctly? What do you guys think? I take it this isn't getting pushed out to anyone, because apparently we've only got 3 people viewing us, which is pretty poor. I'm quite disappointed at YouTube these days. I don't know how to fix it, because we had terrible views on last week's All In. But I'll keep plugging away just for the now and see how it goes. It might be worth starting a separate channel, because I think this one might be tainted. I think Ben put the M's on it. But, we just don't know. But anyway, back to the point in hand. Is this going to happen? Yes, I think it's going to happen. I think there's going to be a strike. I think it'll be after Tuesday. How bad is it going to turn out? Because it's like, how bad can it be? Hi, Shalini. Hi, Frankie. Don't worry, mate. As long as you're listening, that's fine. So how bad can this get? Well, yeah, this could get... In fact, let's put it this way. I think this is possibly the most dangerous situation we've been in since 1962 with the Cuban Missile Crisis. I think we're that close to World War III. I think this could really kick off because, you know, Turkey's sitting there, a NATO country that Israel has castigated Erdogan and the country of Turkey and says they're the next Iran. Now, Turkey's got one of the biggest armies in the region. And remember, NATO member. And Israel sees them as a threat. Israel, because Turkey's a Sunni Muslim country. So Israel sees everybody as a threat. So the Greater Israel Project appears to be trying to eliminate everybody in the area. It's just crazy. But yeah, I think things are going to be. I think things are going to be bad because I don't think Iran is going to hold off. Now, the other thing that complicates matters is both China and Russia have naval presence in the Persian Gulf right now, don't they? Because they're doing an exercise with Iran. In fact, Straits of Hormuz were closed the other day for a couple of hours, and the price of oil went woof just for a couple of hours. So quite interesting. Because if war does break out, the Straits of Hormuz will be closed and there won't be any oil flowing out of that area. So you can kiss goodbye to all the oil that's coming out of that, all the depots there. Which will just make a mess of the world's economy, won't it? And China gets something like 70% of its oil from that region. If China can't get its oil from there, it'll go somewhere else. And China's got the buying power to basically beat everyone else. They were blocking Starlink for Iran, but I think they may have got around some of that. But I don't think this is about a regime change because, something, we don't actually know what's going on in Iran because we've seen these protests and we've seen people, filming it and being shot and whatever. And then you've got to wonder who's behind the protests. Well, almost certainly the CIA, possibly Soros. It's like another colour revolution, isn't it? It looks like what happened in Ukraine in 2014. And then it stopped because basically communication was kind of blocked. And now, the thing is, we're getting pundits in the mainstream media and the West saying that 80% of the population are against the Iranian regime, and yet you're getting information from the other side, and not from Iran, but from other pundits on the more eastern side, the BRICS side, saying 70% of the population are behind the regime. And there was one woman who got a video out, and she was in Iran filming herself, a lawyer or whatever, and said that she used to be against the regime, but all this carry on has made her, switch sides, basically. She's now for the regime in Iran and thinks they're doing a good job in very difficult circumstances. And if we think back to 9/11, what happened there? Because we had George W. Bush, no doubt, the man was retarded. We had him as the President of the United States. And what happened after 9/11? Everybody rallied round him. Democrat, Republican, Senator, Congressman, didn't matter. Everybody rallied around him. And they stuck with him for 4 or 5 months. So that is maybe what's happening here in Iran. Your country's under attack. Okay, you're with the government who seem to be doing the best they can. And you know what? I think taking the Americans, it's put them a little bit in the back foot with Iran just not backing down. They haven't backed down one iota. They've continually said, come at us, we'll give as good as we can give. Which is not something the Americans are used to. It's something that bullies don't get often challenged. And, I love America, but militarily, America has been a bully since 1945. They've done nothing but bully small nations. They've done nothing but fight non-peer group adversaries and lose. And that, and they're still very sensitive about it. Because somebody was tweeting something the other day about, you know, how the AC 130, you know, the Hercules gunship was terrifying to the Viet Cong. And I said, and yet you still get pushed out. The Viet Cong ultimately still won the war. And it's like, but you know what? Facts are facts. And sometimes you've got to sit back and say, well, maybe we just shouldn't have been there. Like, what the fuck were we doing in Afghanistan? And can someone explain that to me? Because I can't understand why we were in Afghanistan and left it that's now in a worse state than it was when everybody moved in. What the hell were we trying to do? And, you know, it's not as if other countries hadn't tried the same thing. Like, Russia had been in Afghanistan, got their asses kicked and, you know, just bugged out and left it alone. Why did we then move in and think we could do better? And it's the same with the Americans in Vietnam. You know, the French were in Vietnam and got their asses kicked and moved out. And then why do the Americans think they could do better? You know, fighting guerrilla wars can only be fought with guerrillas. That sounds crazy, but you've got to fight guerrilla wars as guerrillas, and that's why. And this is maybe controversial, but that's why you can't fault what the SAS did in Northern Ireland, because they took the war to the IRA, and you know. Yeah, they ambushed them, they killed them, they ambushed them in Gibraltar, they killed them, you know. You can't fault that kind of action if that's the kind of war that you're fighting, because there's no honour in it. And, you know, if you think there's honour in war, I think maybe you need to stand back and reevaluate your choices, because there's no honour in war. It should be the last measure that you would ever want to take. And unfortunately, old men sitting at desks who should know better don't think like that. And they push forward the pawns into danger and ultimately to lose their lives. And we can see that with what's going on in Ukraine. So where were we? The second carrier group is heading into that thing I showed you hadn't been updated since. Oh no, it's not there. Sorry, we must have. Oh, I can go back. No. Yeah, there we go. Loading the tracking map. Yeah, so that hasn't been updated since yesterday. It's midday, more or less. 2:18 it was up. Sorry, 13:57 UTC. It was updated yesterday. So it's no doubt the carrier is now through the Straits of Gibraltar, which are just up there. There. So it's I've no doubt gone through the Straits of Gibraltar. It'll be in the Med. It'll be heading for the Panama Canal, but it's obviously turned off its tracking now. Why? I don't know, because it's an aircraft carrier. It's not something you can miss in the Med or in the Panama Canal. Hi, Espresso. Did you not get notified by YouTube? If you aren't, remember you've got to hit the bell twice, I think, or something like that, to make sure you get notifications. I just decided to do an impromptu stream because I get fed up with the situation in the Middle East. And I think it's getting to the point where we might have to be doing nightly updates because things are changing all the time. You've seen Rubio on TV trying to explain what they're doing and not doing a terribly good job about it. I've seen Vance on TV as well, still wearing the eye makeup. Why does he do that? He's not an Indian. I don't understand. I know it's a caste thing in India, and his wife is an Indian, but it's just weird that he just it makes him look almost demonic. Yeah, I know you're subscribed to Espresso. I think you got to, if you got to hit the bell icon though to tell you that that you want notifications when it comes to YouTube. I really don't know, because I hate notifications. I don't like being notified. I just go and find the things I want to watch. But it's nice to see you anyway, my man. Nice to see you. So yeah, that hasn't been updated for a day now, so that will be halfway down the med. It's making good time. It was cranking along at 18 knots there. So yeah, it'll be there maybe Monday. We'll see what happens then, obviously. Anyway, let's talk about back to Iran, because Iran's huge, huge country, and they've buried a lot of their stuff. They have underground launchers, so not only do they have the launchers underground, the mobile ones that they can take out and move around. And let's be honest, the US doesn't have a great record of finding them, because the Houthis made them. They drove the last aircraft carrier group away, didn't they? They drove them away from Yemen. They had to retreat because they couldn't find the launchers, and they kept firing missiles at them. In fact, did they not hit a ship? I don't think they made a big dent in it, but I think they actually hit a ship, not an aircraft carrier, but a ship. And Iran, with the backing of China and Russia, is going to be a lot more accurate now. They've got underground launchers as well, so they can actually launch ballistic missiles from underground, much like, you remember the Minuteman sites that they have in the States and things like that. So they've got that kind of technology as well. So, I'm not sure what the Americans are going to do here. Iran's quite a distance. I mean, what distance is that? You can measure stuff in Google, can't you? Can you? Oh, there's Tehran. I mean, that's the capital, but that's quite a distance away from where the aircraft carriers will be, because the aircraft carriers are going to be down here. In the Indian Ocean, Gulf of Oman, And yeah, I know you can have tankers and things, but tankers are easy targets, so you're not going to be flying them over Iranian territory, especially if they're armed with AS-400s, the Russian anti-aircraft missiles. So yeah, I think the whole thing's a mess, and I don't understand why Donald's let it get to this. Well, I do understand why he's let it get to this, because he's taken his direction from Netanyahu. Israel is the tail that wags the dog that is the US. It really is. There's nothing else to say about that other than the US is firmly in their grip. And that's sad, because Israel is a very, very aggressive little place, isn't it? For such a small place, such a small nation, they've got one hell of a chip in their shoulder. And I don't think it's necessarily justified. And that might be controversial, but we won't go into that in too much detail. But apparently the Yanks have put a lot of kit in Jordan, because I think Saudi Arabia's already said you can't use our stuff, because that would have, Riyadh, the big base in Riyadh that they used when they were doing the attack in Iraq, that would have been handy, because that's just straight across the Gulf. But no. The Saudis said they can't use their kit. And we've said at the moment that they can't use either Fairford or Diego Garcia, which is a way down here. There, that's Diego Garcia. It's a hell of a distance. Fine for a B-52. But you're not going to have anyone else down there. It would just be B-52s that would be flying in from there, right up to Iran and over. That's a hell of a flight. But quite interesting. So that's the situation. We've withheld our permission to use Fairford or Diego Garcia, and we'll see how long Starmer stands on that. I don't know if he can continue to do that, because the Yanks will be putting pressure on him right now, and it's not good when he's pressurised, is he? Although I did see something today that suggests that Americans are flying F-16s over Kiev to shoot down drones in US Air Force planes. So the American Air Force are apparently flying F-16s over Kiev. I don't know if that's true. I haven't verified it, but if one of them gets shot down, that's going to look stupid, isn't it? It's not. Russia's not stopping now. You know, that war's finished. Russia's just going to take what it wants now. And Donald has repeatedly been caught out. You know, he says one thing in Anchorage and then something else happens in Ukraine. Like, if there are American planes flying over Kiev, then, you know, that's against everything he said in Anchorage. So the Russians have no reason to trust Trump. And there's more than that. There's many, many times he's gone back on his word. So why would you? Why would you trust him? And the Russians have got a vested interest in Iran, as has China, because they're both BRICS countries, and so is India. So could you see India involved in this on the side of? I don't think so. I think India will sit in they'll sit in the sidelines because it's India. Hello, Adam. Good to see you, mate. We're just chatting about the situation in Iran and the States with our carrier groups heading down there. So I think is that about everything for tonight? Is there anything else we want to talk about? Is there anything that's coming up? We've covered Turkey and we've covered Israel's thoughts on Turkey, which aren't complimentary. Calling Turkey the next Iran, wanting rid of Erdogan, and the US want rid of Erdogan as well. And so do Europe, because Turkey's a massive thorn in their side, keeps blocking people's entry. And you know what? Between them and Hungary, the Europeans have got their work cut out, haven't they? Iraq has said that if anything happens with Iran, they would go in on the side of Iran. So the US have done a great job there, haven't they? Syria's a mess because the Americans and the Israelis have made it a mess, not left it alone. The Americans are there stealing oil as we speak. Hungary is very interesting, says Adam. A lot of intel talk about what's going on there. Yeah. I think the next big thing for the Middle East is Turkey, because Israel said a lot of inflammatory stuff about Turkey, Adam. Talking about how it's the next Iran, how they're is trying to encircle them with Muslim countries. They are already encircled by Muslim countries. For God's sake. You know, why didn't we just give them fucking California? You know, why didn't we just put them all in California? Wouldn't that have solved all the problems? Then you would have had a nice little country in California called Israel, and they could have just ran the United States from within the United States, instead of having to project power across half the world. Crazy. Saudi Arabia is not taking part in this. They're just keeping their head down. Egypt isn't saying anything. Yemen's an interesting one, because they're Shiite as well, although I believe they're what they call, 7th instead of 12th. I think the Iranians are, I need to do some more research into this, but the Iranians are 12th and Yemen's 7th or something. It's a different branch of Shiitism. Shiite, not shite, Shiite. But they're interesting because they've already seen the Yanks off once. I just wonder if anyone's ever thought of giving them some really good missiles. don't do that. But yeah, imagine if they had really good missiles, because they're in a great position to take out ships in the Arabian Sea, aren't they? Yeah. Very interesting. It's an interesting world we live in. So I think you probably find the aircraft carriers probably round about here just now. The Ford. They've got to go down through the canal because they can't fight. They can't fight in there. They cannot fight in there because there's no room to manoeuvre. They got to come down. Then they got to come down the. They're even. What's this? What is that? That's the Persian Gulf. What's this one called? Oh, good. It's a Gulf anyway. It's a Gulf. Gulf of Aden. Oh, of course, that's the Gulf of Aden. Oh, it's the Red Sea. For God's sake, man, get your geography going. Yeah, so they've got to come down the Red Sea, out through the Gulf of Aden, and into the Arabian Sea, right past Yemen. Before they're in a position to do anything. So, what, another 1, 2, 3? Yeah, I think probably Monday before they're in any kind of position. Somalia, they'll be the captain now. Yeah, right past Somalia as well. The Russian Doomsday plane was out again, was it? No, I didn't see that. But I know they've got ships in the area doing an exercise with Iran. So we'll see what happens. I think we need to keep an eye on it. We'll jump back up and talk about it. We've covered that little thing in Ukraine with possibly the US Air Force operating within Ukraine, which is really dodgy. Really, really dodgy. There's a shitload of equipment being sent to the Gulf, to Jordan. Just so much American ordnance going down that way. And it could all go horribly wrong. And the thing is, they don't have enough troops or land armour to stage any kind of invasion. And when you think about it, remember when they went to do Iraq, it literally took them like 8 or 9 months to build up all the equipment in Saudi Arabia before they were ready to go. So they're not planning a ground invasion in Iraq, and Donald, that wouldn't suit well with Donald anyway, because he doesn't want to get involved in a big war, but I think he might be biting off something that he really doesn't want to if he goes in against Iran. And you got a lot of countries there that have no great love for America. Afghanistan, Pakistan, Yemen, Iraq, Syria, Turkey, Egypt. Get a lot of countries in there that really have no great love for the US. In fact, is there a country in the Middle East, bar Israel, that has any love for the US? That's the question. I don't think so. So yeah, interesting. Very interesting indeed. So the question is, what's going to happen next? What's Donald going to do? And actually, here's a point to cover. Why is it up to Donald? Because as far as I was aware, Congress had to approve military action to this level. And Congress has been strangely quiet. They haven't even been talking about UAPs recently. Sometimes you think about it, when you think about these things, it's like, what the fucking hell is going on in the world? You've got them sending all these troops to the Middle East, and they're still talking about flying saucers. These people are nuts. They really are. You've got to wonder, how do these, why do we elect these people and why do we allow this system to continue? Because it's not doing anyone any good. They're not representing you and me, are they? Certainly not representing me. Kim Jong is supporting Iran, says Adam. Yeah, of course he is, because you know what? And people used to laugh at North Korea, didn't they, when they were, floundering about and blowing up missiles and all their testing and things. Nobody's laughing at them now. In fact, the America doesn't even mention North Korea anymore because North Korea's got a nuclear weapon. And if North Korea has taught the world anything, it's that if you want to be left alone by the states, get yourself a nuclear weapon. Now, as we said earlier, Iran's religion doesn't allow that at the moment. But if the head of the Shiite religion decides that needs must, then he could change his mind, I guess. So yeah, interesting, very interesting times we live in, people. What's going to happen? You tell me. Leave comments and things if you want, and we can discuss it further. We'll be back on tomorrow night with Shalini on All In. So I look forward to seeing you there. And that's about it for the moment. I'm sure you've all had a good day. I'm going to play out with that Warhawks on because I like it. I just like the sound of it. So we'll play out with that. And I'll see you tomorrow night. So, as always, it's been great for you.
Flag pin, shiny as a TV grin, talking tough from a leather chair, sending kids where they'll never sit. Golden tie, talking like it's do or die. Papers power while the cameras spin. Every word is a practice line. Walks, gotta walk. Big talk, big stage, small cause, beat the drum, sell the shock. Warhawks, gotta walk. Podcast rage, sells fear like a backstage pass. New suit, same old script. Every map is a looking glass. Front row, cheering from the studio glow. Draw the lines with a marker pen. Other people pay the debt again. Warhawks, gotta walk. Big talk, big stage, small cause, beat the drum, sell the suck. Warhawks, gotta walk. Name the names, then dodge the blame. Call it fate, call it keep us safe. They count votes, we count ghosts. Who counts the folded flags on kitchen table?